everyone, to the podcast today. We have Dan Barnes and Wesley LaPorte. How you guys doing today?
Feeling great.
Feeling good.
That's
Real
awesome.
good.
Ready to tell the stories.
Feels great.
Feels good to
Everything's just great.
We've been talking about the podcast for, 6 months, so feels good.
We're finally going. We got the space ready. We got our nice little Zappy logo right there, ready to
Zappy,
go.
is that what we're calling it?
We'll see if it sticks.
That's a good name, Zappy.
That's what we're saying so far.
Zappy the logo.
So we'll see how much people like that. So let's just get right into it.
Okay, what are we talking about today, Dallin?
We're talking about phone soap.
Oh, I know.
Do you guys know anything about that?
Yeah.
Nice.
We can talk about phone soap.
So
We've been talking about it for over a decade.
yeah.
Yeah.
So like people just like to know how businesses start. They just want to know because everyone has an idea.
Yeah.
Some people just don't know where to go. They have the idea and they're stuck because they don't know the people to talk to. They don't know what steps to take.
Yeah.
How was the journey with phone soap?
See, the interesting thing about phone soap, I think, is a lot of people have business ideas and they don't know where to start. But we were probably different. We wanted, not that we didn't have ideas, but we wanted a business.
Yeah.
And then we threw a bunch of things up against the wall, right?
That's true. Actually, probably like a good place to start would just be, people that want to start businesses have all kinds of different backgrounds and they're in different places in their lives, but maybe we should go through where we were in our life when we started it. So why don't you start? Where were you? What were you doing? What was your mental state? What was your career path? Those type of things.
Yeah. So I'm Dan Barnes.
Welcome.
One of the founders of Phone Soap. And Wes and I are cousins. So I'm gonna go back even further, maybe, Wes.
Do it.
So Wes and I, grew up together and always just enjoyed being together, right? And have a good time together. And so to fuel that, we needed money.
Oh.
So
money.
So even as teenagers, we were doing things together, right? Washing windows, going door to door and painting addresses on people's curbs. Just whatever people would do to pay teenagers just cold, hard cash.
So you guys were already hustling.
We were hustling from a young age.
Yeah, and I guess like what we were trying to do is just party.
Just to have fun. It wasn't like...
Oh, yeah.
We weren't trying to be rich. We were just trying to have fun.
That's all kids want to do anyway.
Rich enough to fly to each other's homes, Northern, Southern California, and go to dances.
Nice.
That's about it.
Yeah.
So that kept... we can go into that at some future point, right? But cousins, family, fueled just to kind of work together and to have experiences together, right? Mm-hmm. So then moving into college, kind of same idea. We knew we still wanted to keep that thread and to find something to do. So when Phone Soap came about, I was probably married. For sure was when it started, but I'm trying to think even like some of the early ideas.
You were 100% married.
I got married.
I was 100% not married.
What year is this?
I was all in. All right, so this, probably 2009, 2010, we just started coming up with ideas, right? Which is like, we want to start a business, what should it be? One thing that sticks out to me is Tomorrow's Table.
Yes.
Remember that name?
Yeah. Well, so there was I like that one. There was a business plan competition on campus. Yeah. And so we we had entered in maybe 1 or 2 years. Like every year that they had it, we
put out an idea.
To your point, we weren't we didn't have an idea.
Yeah.
And then tried to enter the business plan competition. We wanted to enter the business plan competition, so we needed an idea.
That's right. Tomorrow's Table is one of the ones I remember most, which would have been back in 2009, 2010, way ahead of its time.
Nice.
It was like a recipe type thing.
Yeah.
Maybe we ship food, maybe we wouldn't. That we never got so far, but it was recipes online, storing, cooking, ideas. Anyways, a lot of ideas.
Yeah, think of Instagram, but recipes only. Mm-hmm. You would select the recipe, and of all the things you wanted to cook, let's say you put together, a menu, and then the app would tell you what you needed to go buy. Mm. So
pretty
there's
cool.
plenty of.
Okay.
I think
the amounts and everything.
Yeah. So I think that actually that either exists like already. I think I've seen a lot of things like that. But also, maybe that space was replaced by like Blue Apron and HelloFresh and these.
Yeah.
People don't want to go shopping necessarily. And
So you were trying to get everyone to go buy all the small ingredients themselves.
Yeah. Tomorrow's Table would have been an app that let people just like browse through food that they thought was good that they wanted to eat, and then the app would spit out what they needed to buy, and then they could follow the recipe later.
Yeah, and so like the core of it was. So I was going through business school, and one thing they taught, and you've probably heard, is find a problem and fix it.
Yeah.
So we were looking for that, and so it's probably like I was newlywed, and Cass and I were probably like, we don't like no one taught us how to cook. Like how are we supposed to feed ourselves? So maybe that fueled that,
and
right?
You're notoriously picky. Since I grew up with you, I know that
Chicken fingers.
That actually,
bites.
You survived most of your. I remember most of your childhood was survived on cereal and Eggo waffles.
Eggo waffles, homemade syrup though.
Homemade syrup.
Warm homemade syrup. So lots of different
Dan would
ideas.
make from a young age.
I'm going to just move on from the food because we're about to find out all my bad habits. I now can eat tomatoes, onions, etc. So a lot of different ideas.
Growth.
Then one day we dig into more. There were more. iPad comes out. We're like, let's make an iPad bag, and we had a lady stitching for us in Provo, right? Remember that?
Yeah. No, that was probably our first foray into manufacturing.
We need to put that video up. Yeah.
What is it?
We have photos and videos of us with the very first iPad. I think we just wanted an excuse to buy an iPad.
I think so.
We unboxed it and everything.
We wanted to basically create a purse for your iPhone.
Yeah, a
Got
purse.
it.
A purse.
Again, ahead of our time.
Purse.
Yeah.
Man or woman.
People
purse.
love that now.
So many ideas, right? But then I remember one. Are there any others that are really interesting? Those are the ones that are just ringing.
Yeah, those stood out. Those stood out.
But then one day, I saw a news report. I was probably on the toilet.
Well, we should probably say that both of those ideas went nowhere and people didn't really like them.
Yeah, but we did. But they didn't go anywhere.
That's all that matters.
But the merce didn't look very good.
No, it looked bad. It was as far as our first product that we ever made, it was like pretty
boring.
Pretty bad.
It was like
was it like a small little bag, or was it like a full-on bag with a section for?
It was the original iPad, and you just slip it into the bag, and the idea was that like that's all you needed. Like around campus and stuff, you just wear your wear your iPad. It had a flap.
Yeah.
So
but it
looked
was
just like
Joanne's fabric. Just like fabric from the store. Dinos.
So it would flip open, so you could like use it whenever, and then flip it closed, magnet it.
Oh yeah, it had like a screen.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So it's covered. You were just wearing your iPad. You were just wearing your iPad on your hip.
You couldn't put anything else in it. Just an iPad. Okay.
So sometimes it takes a lot of different ideas, and you throw it out there, and you see what people think.
There you go.
So then one day, see a news report that says the average cell phone is 18 times dirtier than a public restroom. This was in 2009, 2010. We should probably look at our dates.
2009 for sure.
So iPhones were still real new. I guess you'd call us early adopters. Always loved
2 years old.
The Apple tech. Watched the comeback. So we were so excited. We had our iPhones, but they weren't really that widely adopted yet. And in general, smartphones weren't or touchscreens. In
fact,
right?
I think that the article that you're referring to, the main image on that article was of a flip phone.
Probably a flip phone. But we thought, hey, this is going to be a growing problem. Pun intended.
Yeah, that was a good job.
And so I said, okay, this is a good problem that we know. No one back then admitted where they used their phone, but we knew where we used our phones.
Yes.
No one cared. Again, one idea that we threw out and people were like, nah, no one cares about this, right? But it was a real problem. And so we said, let's look for a solution here.
Okay.
I mean, Facebook wasn't even, didn't have an app. I don't think they had an app for a couple of years.
That's probably true, huh? So I didn't know what we were doing on our cell phones back then.
Just texting.
In solitaire.
Probably.
So, okay, so like, here's a problem. Let's fix it. But before even the tech, I think we were looking at wipes first, just right out the gate.
Yeah, so
what are some ways to clean and disinfect a phone?
This is part of the stories where your wife comes in.
Yeah.
So I remember it because we found the problem. Phones are somehow ridiculously, filthy.
Yeah.
And no one's cleaning them. So we should more as a marketing play, we should
right again.
We should use chemicals to clean the phone.
Less germaphobe driven, more idea driven, and that's kind of not to two sidebar here, but it was so fun. I remember that time. Like, whether it's in university or not, but for us it was just so many ideas. And you sit down at night, you come up with different ideas, and you always worry that someone already thought about that. We're never going to, but there's always room for ideas. So I just remember how exciting that time was.
Yeah. Well, and the truth of the matter is that like, I think I heard once that like, if you have let's say you have an idea, well, there's at least 10 other people in the world who are having that same idea at the same time. Mm-hmm. And what it comes down to is like, are you going to do something about it or not? Mm-hmm. So a lot of ideas, probably this exact idea was had by someone before, but we just kind of were able to push it forward. But we started with, I was doing chemical engineering at the time at BYU. And so that was kind of where my head was at. Like we should use a chemical. There's lots of chemicals, obviously, to disinfect and clean stuff. But we were like, we should create like a new chemical that's safe for phones. Because like especially Apple was like, do not use water,
liquid chemicals.
We've got something in the phone that if water comes within 10 feet of this phone,
yes, your warranty is void.
Your warranty.
Did they used to talk about that in the beginning?
Oh yeah, they're like, no moisture whatsoever come close to this phone.
Yeah.
And so that's where chemicals was like. So this is where your wife comes into the story because we were at your apartment. I remember we were talking through the idea, and we were talking about like chemicals. We might have already been like PhoneSoap's a cool name. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because we already think about cleaning phones.
Yeah,
come up with phone names.
And so I think that your wife said, she said, why don't you? It would be cool if you just like had a box that you can put your phone into and it would be cleaned,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I don't. You should probably ask her. Like she was
phone a friend.
Yeah, phone a friend.
Where's my phone?
She's like, you're telling the story completely wrong.
Yeah.
Well. So I'm like, was she might have been joking. I mean, she laughs a lot, which is
she doesn't giggle a lot.
Yeah. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it was serious or not. But when she said that, I thought it was a good idea. Yeah. And actually, what popped into my head was at the time I was doing cancer research, also at cancer immunology research, also at the university, and we used really large format UV lights to disinfect the areas at night after everyone had gone. The areas that we would do our cell cultures, and so I knew about UV, and that was kind of like a box. That's like what popped into my head was this hood with a UV light.
And how big were those UV lights?
Oh, they're big. They're like this long, and because a hood is like it sucks up all the air and filters it. But
it's about like 3 feet wide or whatever.
Yeah. So you'd sit at this hood, this table, and it has this door that opens, and you would do all of your pipetting and stuff. Mm-hmm. Keep all the stuff that could contaminate other stuff in this hood. And when you were done with it, you close it and then you turn on the light, and at night it would just make sure everything in there stayed disinfected and clean. So
UV light had been used before.
Oh yeah. In fact, UV light has been used to disinfect since like 1914.
Wow.
I think on our website we like touch on that, like the origins of UVC light and when it was first.
Yeah, we should delve into that a little bit more in video form for
another day. Yeah, that'd be cool. History of UV. Well, so that's what popped into my head. So I was like, actually, there is, we could do that. There is a box, and it was kind of cool because there was always that elephant in the room of, this can never be like super successful because using chemicals more than like a marketing play, because chemicals and phones fundamentally don't mix for a couple reasons. Like two main reasons back then was, liquids in phones, no. You avoid your warranty, screw up everything. And now a lot of phones are waterproof, but still, to this day, like all phones ship with an oleophobic coating on them.
Yeah.
So. And
what does that do?
Well, it repels oils and fingerprints and smudges and stuff. But basically, like when you get a new phone, the screen's all nice and feels great on your finger. Then after a while, that wears off. But if you put like any chemical that would kill bacteria, it would also like negatively affect that coating.
Strip it off.
Yeah. So it was just chemicals are are good for cleaning lots of stuff. They still are.
Mm-hmm.
But for phones specifically, once that idea was thrown out, like, why isn't there just a box that cleans the phone? Then kind of the ideas connected, and that's when we started, going after UVC light in a box as a possible way to disinfect.
Yeah, and it wasn't a home run at first. I remember one competition we did early on, before you get into the main business plan. They have these kind of crowd favorites, and they do little competitions along the way, and we entered one of those.
Student Innovator of the Year competition was that first one.
Yeah. So and that was a win, right?
Yeah, I think we won $1,000.
Yeah,
doing that. I've got a picture. As we talk about this stuff, I'm like, we've got pictures for all this. We can send it to you.
Whoever's editing this, add it in.
Please add it in. So before there was just a pitch competition. I think even before that one, where we didn't have to have a product at all, just idea.
Yeah.
Because they liked you to start early and let you know that, hey, sometimes it's just the idea that matters. And so did this big pitch, and ours was not a winner, but it was the crowd favorite.
Yes,
There's a lot of poop talk. Your phone's dirty. You use it on the toilet, and that's really what we focused on in the beginning. So we were crowd favorite. So there were some wins and some losses definitely along the way early on.
That's true. The very first thing was that idea pitch competition where we just pitched the idea. So that was the first money that we won.
Yeah.
So what idea won that competition? Do you remember?
I think it was the chemicals.
Chemicals?
No, it wasn't.
No,
we pitched the UV
I don't know
box.
who won. At that point we pitched the UV box, and I don't know who won that competition.
Okay.
You only remember the ones that stick around down.
Yeah, that's true. That's why I was wondering, are they anyone today?
They didn't make it. And so, then we had something, right? It wasn't quite a winner to maybe the business minds in the room, but to the crowd, it was fun. It was catchy, and that's what matters, right? Is it a sticky idea? And so we knew we at least had a sticky idea. And either then or moving forward in the business plan competition, we then thought, okay, let's take this box and let's marry it to a charger. Because one of the big problems was, and the feedback we're starting to get is, well, when would I do that? I don't care about it. How do I do it? How would I think about it? So to continue to make it sticky, the message was funny and sticky, but the use case maybe wasn't as much. And so married it with a charger such that every night you're going to charge your phone. So we tell them, hey, you're going to charge your phone every night, just charge it and disinfect it at the same time. So
That's true.
We were trying to hook that, marry it to a habit you already had. So that's why our products have always had chargers, it was the original hook to convince anyone to even use the thing, right?
Yeah.
So I think we developed it actually pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Shape, design, no, we'll talk about that. But that substance of a box with light, disinfectant charge, that's what we took into the business plan competitions.
Yeah, I think some of the feedback from maybe that very first competition was, we had these competitions, but we also talked to a lot of business leaders in the community and tried to, anyone who's done something remotely similar to what we were trying to do, we would invite them to lunch and ask them for a little bit of their time. And so I think that the idea of marrying a charger to it came about someone's feedback as far as it's with a new product and a new category, it's really hard to change people's habits. It's really hard. You might have a really great idea, but it's really hard to get someone to have a habit, and if people don't use the product, they won't feel like it's useful. It won't grow, it won't spread, it won't be used. And so that was the habit that we're like, okay, well, the only time you're not using your phone is basically when you're asleep at this point. You're using it on the toilet, you're using it, while you cook, you're using it all the time.
At the gym.
At the gym. So
Dan knows about that.
I know about the gym.
Yeah, just look at him.
Just look at me.
So we married it to this habit that everyone still has, which is once your phone runs out of batteries, you got to plug it in.
Yeah.
And so if you're going to plug it in, you might as well plug it into a phone soap and have your phone be charged and clean.
Yeah. And I think that was, so we took that. Yeah, I think the business plans itself, I don't remember many highlights after that, right? I mean, we did it first at our university. And I know we didn't take first. I don't know what, if
No,
anything,
we
took.
never won first, but we always like even at the final business plan competition, we won like the audience.
Yeah,
award.
so after,
I think we got
after that, we
third.
went to Rice. Yeah, I think so. And then went to the Rice Business Plan competition. And that one, same thing. Yeah, we won best marketing. So we did get first in marketing, the idea behind it, right? So there was never like, some people I think just take off running. And it's really obvious. Ours wasn't so much. It was a battle getting it off the ground.
Yeah.
There was just enough wins to keep us interested, but not enough to like tell us, drop out of school,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So after the business plan competitions, I think we kept pursuing it while we also had to keep going separate ways, right?
Yeah.
So I think there's not as many exciting gems there. So anything else that sticks out in school?
I think that for me personally, the defining moment I think it was between the idea plan competition and like the student innovator of the year competition. And the difference between those two competitions, at least at the university, was one was just an idea, and the second one was like, okay, you got to demonstrate your idea now. You got to show it, And so I think that was the hardest part. That was the hardest part of the whole journey. I think was just like, okay, we had this idea and people liked it. And we have this money, but now we actually, for this next competition, we actually have to like build something and show it to people. And so I remember that moment. We had to build it, and so
And there was a gap, right?
Yeah.
So before kind of the student innovator year of building it, I think we so I graduated.
Yep.
So I went off to corporate, and I think you were headed towards med school, right? And at Zappos they were, Tony and otherwise were really supporting launching businesses, even from internal companies.
Yep.
And so we still had this in the back of our minds, and we still been working on it and kind of developing the idea. I don't remember where you were at that point, but I remember a drive from home, Southern California to Vegas, and just being like, this is a good idea. We got to do this.
Yeah.
And so we started thinking like, let's get this on Kickstarter. Let's get it back in business plans. And that's, I think, when it was like, okay, gave you a call and we're like, yeah, no, I can build one of these, right? Like we can test this out. And then I think you went to the garage and actually put a box together. Right?
Yeah. So I was back in California for, Thanksgiving or Christmas, some break, some holiday. And looking back, like there was a better way to have done this, but like my dad helped me actually, cause he's a woodworker, but we actually made like a box, and I'll get you an image of this. We actually carved out a box we took a block of wood and like made a box. And looking back, it's like we could have just bought a box. It's not like jewelry boxes didn't exist. We could have just
you bought a jewelry box. Yeah.
So the first phone soap prototype was wooden,
shaved out of a block of wood.
It was shaved out of a block of wood. Like, I mean, this was besides like Pinewood Derby. This was like
very
my first time like actually making anything, right? And so that was kind of the structure of it, and the cavity was just, there's nothing to it, but it was lined with aluminum foil. So we lined it with aluminum foil, and then I bought a UV light and connected it to a battery pack. And that battery pack was bondoed into this box. Hopefully you have the picture to show, and it will kind of make sense. But what you see in this picture was the very first phone soap of all time. And It's what we took to the lab. It's what we tested. And was it 360 degree disinfection yet? No, it wasn't. But it was, does UV light kill germs on the phone, right?
Yeah.
And we actually tested that in, I was in a lab and we actually tested it there. And so that was an exciting thing. But that was like,
is it even possible, right? Because some winnings here and there, some marketing says some of this, that, and the other. But now I actually see if this thing actually works. So that was very exciting, validating first, which is what everyone said. You've got to prove it works. And then you've got to prove that people are interested in buying it, right?
Yeah, so that's what we brought to the Student Innovator of the Year competition, where we showed, like, here's our idea and here is the product. And and I almost didn't want to bring it because, as you see, it looks so terrible. Like, I imagine myself looking at it and being like, these guys' cart, like this stupid wooden box. I think I painted it to make it look.
It was white, and you probably didn't buy it white. I remember being white.
No, I
Maybe
painted
the photo
it.
will show otherwise.
It was like the most.
I remember.
It was the most like handmade prototype product anyone has ever seen.
Yeah.
It looked the least likely to actually do what we said it did. Of anything, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But that's the point that I'm trying to make is we just did it.
Yeah.
We just decided, yes, we will do it. We built it, even though at the end of the build we were like, this sucks. Like visually it worked, so we're like, okay, at least that's good.
Yeah.
But we did it, and so that was mentally for me at that time. That was the difficult thing, which is just the doing of it and just taking that next step. But that's really what was important. And the rest of the business, like basically until today, is just like baby steps, basically to the next thing,
step,
to the next product, to the next campaign. Et cetera,
And so when you did bring it to the competition, like how were the other people's products? Did they look fine-tuned or were they just as janky?
I don't think anyone was as janky looking as ours.
Okay.
And some of them were like, app concepts and stuff.
Yeah.
That was starting to be a thing, and or software. So, but I actually think that we were one of the few people that actually had a product at all.
Yeah, I think it wasn't very popular to do products at the time.
And that probably worked in your favor, having something physical.
Yeah, because a lot of people, it was still, yes, I remember some people having stuff, but, but yeah, that was part of it because Kickstarter, I think, launched that same year.
Yeah, it was pretty early on. I think we were on it in the first 1 or 2 years. So those winnings, I remember the photo, big check. Because see, to me in mine, that's a separate stage because I was out of school by that point.
That's true. You were out of the state when we did that competition. That's right.
So then it was like, okay, we've proved we've gotten a couple wins on the way from the crowd. Now we've actually won some form of competition. Now we've proved that it works. And the next step was to prove that people were interested. And at that point, it was obvious for Kickstarter.
Yeah.
So we started putting together the pitch there.
That's right.
And, I'm filming myself at home. Eventually, again, Zappable was very supportive of entrepreneurs, had a studio there for us to shoot in.
That's right.
So I remember filming there with that video crew. And, we put together this piece with all sorts of, different, because you're not faking it, but you sort of are, right?
Yeah.
So at that point, going into Kickstarter, we must have had enough winnings to pay for that metal CNC open shut box.
Yeah. So yeah, that's true. So we, after the janky prototype that actually worked, that functioned, but looked like you couldn't put that. Obviously, you've seen it now.
So then we need to prepare to prove that people would buy it.
Mm-hmm.
So part of that was showing them a product that actually looked better than a wood block. So I remember we took some of our winnings and started designing and building out something that we could actually show visually for Kickstarter.
Right. Yeah. So we partnered with an industrial designer at BYU, and I think that we used basically all of our, not all of it, but a lot of the money that we earned from these competitions to build the prototype. We gave the designer some equity, and he did a great job. But I think that we used actually all the money to like build it, like CNC it, and
that original
paint it. So, and it was a cool design actually.
Yeah,
In
different.
fact, I'm thinking about it now. I'm like that. Yeah, that's.
It is really cool. It was more of a rectangle, and it had a little tab you'd open.
You'd slide it sideways instead of clamshell.
Yeah.
Yep.
It was a pretty cool design. I mean, because it needed to look interesting, right?
Yeah.
So we take that, film it, we get some B-roll with it, and I don't remember if that one worked. We knew at that point that UVC killed, right? Which I think is key here, right? We didn't invent the technology, and you don't have to invent the technology, right? You can iterate, you can take something someone else has done. Someone else wasn't making a sanitizer that we made better, but they did have sanitizing tech that we shrunk, right? We made it accessible to the consumers in a way that it never had been before.
Yeah, McDonald's didn't make hamburgers, or they didn't invent hamburgers.
They didn't invent cows either.
That's true.
So we take a proven technology now, shrink it down, and again, I think it's sort of fake it till you make it type thing, right? Where we knew it would work, but didn't have all the guts necessarily. But I remember shooting some B-roll with it, and putting our faces on camera and talking about the problem. Which again, the first few years, and we'll get into this later, we grew past this. But the first few years, our whole fight was just to prove and tell people that their phones were dirty. Later, we talked more about UVC light and how it killed. And later, we talked about why that matters for you. But the first year or two, for sure, Kickstarter was just like, trust us, your phone's dirty. And that was the focus.
Yeah.
That was the pitch. So, I don't know. I remember filming myself at home. I remember filming myself at Zappos, just silly stuff. And it was, getting used to hearing yourself talk and put the pitch together, and we'd send it back and forth, and you were out of the country at that point.
Yep.
So getting your feedback remote. We've worked remote for a long time.
I know. It's funny looking back, like post-COVID, with remote work and actually having to do a lot of remote work here during COVID. It's looking back, it's like we've actually, started the business remotely.
Yeah.
So, you don't like, we wouldn't recommend people going into Kickstarter as prematurely as we did. We've grown and we've learned, but a lot of people were doing it, right?
Is Kickstarter still, I don't even know, is it still a thing?
I don't hear about it much anymore.
I don't.
Yeah, no, I mean, still, it is. I mean, I haven't backed anything in a while, but that was the thing where, that was some of the problem that Kickstarter ran into, which is people would, we were so early, there wasn't a lot of examples of this, but they
weren't necessarily bad ones yet either,
Yeah.
Well, and that was fundamentally what we did was what Kickstarter was for, which is here's basically our idea.
Yeah.
And
you're not pre-ordering a product by any means.
You're funding an idea, and as a reward, we'll give you the product when it's done.
As a reward.
Sweet.
Yes.
And so many, since it's been a decade now, but so many products, or ideas are shown and backed and then don't ever ship because the economics aren't there. Like the math didn't work, and that was true for that Kickstarter as well. We had a rough idea of how much it would cost and what we were going to sell it for. But, fundamentally, the costs were, looking back, the costs were too high and the price was too low.
Yeah.
For the product. So that's a story for a little bit later, about the manufacturing side and kind of post Kickstarter. But Kickstarter is, PhoneSoap absolutely would not have existed. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Kickstarter and for that platform.
Yeah. It's a great experience, and we learned from it. And in the future, we launched other products on Kickstarter, and we helped other people launch, and we learned. But we were one of the very first ones, and at the time, it was about 64,000, if I remember correctly. I should have looked it up before, but you can go look PhoneSoap. I imagine it still is stored somewhere in that range, and at that time, it was a big deal.
I think it was
a big success.
I think at the time it was like a top 10 project. That's how early it was. Now it's like you're not cool if you don't break $1 million. But
yeah.
And you probably don't actually get to have a business unless you break.
Nor maybe should you unless you it cost us far more than that to make it. So maybe we talk about that next more. But that was a great experience, a lot of fun. I just remember waking up and refreshing the phone, watching the numbers go up, just so much excitement.
Yeah.
And then I remember all the crazy questions and emails and.
That's right.
Then you start thinking about customer service at a really early stage in your business.
So then there's so many factors that go into the business process.
I'll say last before we move on to the next topics at a future point. I remember getting that check from Kickstarter.
That was cool.
I remember walking it to a bank.
What was
to do it, or I was transferring to. It was like 64 something minus their fees, and I don't remember if it was depositing me, but I had to go to a bank. Maybe I was transferring to a business account. And I was back at school for that. I remember walking into the cafeteria, and they had a Wells Fargo there. And I remember walking in with a $50,000 check.
Yeah.
And I don't know why I went there. I wasn't I don't know, it's just where I was. And, they had to go get the manager and everything. They're like, this thing doesn't look real.
Because the student was working there. So, I had never seen so much money in my life, obviously,
Yeah. We're like, this is going to be easy to launch. $50,000.
Yeah, it's like, oh my goodness, this is like more money than you would ever need to launch a business, which
Yeah.
is totally false. But at the time, it was like a ton of money, and I think, and a teller, because we were on campus at a campus
Yeah.
bank, and he probably had never seen a check that large
his
either.
jaw dropped. That's when you know when the teller
He's like-
doesn't know what they're
Well, he
looking
was
at.
whispering to the manager, like, I think this is fake. You know,
It must not be real.
here's this kid with a check for $60,000,
And we lived at a campus that had summer sales reps, so you'd think they would have seen
That's true.
big checks
Yeah,
coming in.
That's true.
But they were able to verify
They
it.
verified it. They deposited that cash.
Nice.
From Dan's personal bank. It went
I
from
think that's what it
Kickstarter
was.
to
To
Dan's
my personal
personal
account.
and then we made a
Yeah.
business
And
account
then we made a
together.
business account. So a lot of awesome stuff. And from there, the product changed dramatically.
Yes.
And
Drum roll.
that is the cliffhanger that
That
we
is it for
needed
today.
to end this podcast. Thank you guys for joining us. This has been a really good time with Dan and Wes,
Thanks.
and we're going to have a lot more fun with them in the future.
Find out what's next. Find out if we made it next.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe they didn't make it,
Yes.
but you got to watch
and
and,
maybe we
listen to the
don't
next one.
make it. That's part of the journey, right?
That is true. That is true. You got to
But
stay
if
tuned
there
to
are
find
enough
out.
people watching this podcast and you donate to PhoneSoap.com by purchasing a product, we'll make it.
Exactly. Well, it's nice having you guys.
Thanks,
Thanks.
Dallas.
Thank you.